Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Monday night, 8 p.m. The Online Darts Live Lounge returns after a summer hiatus and a fresh new look. Everyone, gentlemen, how are we?
All good. It's been a long bloody day, but all is well. Good weekend. All is good.
Yeah, how are we all? Gob, you all good?
I have napped twice this afternoon.
Napped twice.
Wow.
Lovely. Interesting stuff. Chat room, welcome one and all. Let us know, what do you think of the new look? I told you we'd get some new stuff ready and we'd go a bit fancy. Malachi is in. Owen, how do? Hadel is in. Sam, we will talk about Peter Wright shortly, don't worry. Good evening, Wim. Paul is in. How are we doing? Nels, Mark is in. Carl from Darts Tracker, how are we all doing? Chris is in. Tribal Chief, acknowledge. We all know. Evening, Matador. Evening, Matt. How are we all doing? Hello to Anthony is in. Just pulled up at the airport to pick Luke up and leave Lisa up. Nice, good stuff, mate. Hope all is well. Stu is in, of course. Strickland Nana, how are we all doing? Tommy, the chat room's rammed.
Right, busy tonight, isn't it? Busy early doors. There must be some stuff to talk about, is there, this week?
Yeah. James, Connor, it's all going off. Evening, Jack. Yeah, wow. It's a
big start, isn't it? Everyone's getting stuck in early.
Yeah. Yeah, all good. Let's start with the Euro Tour. We had some ranking darts back. I say ranking in brackets because we will come on to that later.
Everything's ranked.
Sure. Look, first of all, congratulations to Peter Wright. What a weekend for Snakebite. And look, let's be fair, that's kind of come from nowhere.
We've seen, and I think we said it the other week, didn't we? We've talked so much about Peter Wright this year. We've probably talked more about Peter Wright this year than in years when he's won world titles. We've talked about Peter Wright constantly. But we said the other week we'd seen little signs, like sprouts of life. You know, a good game here, a good game there, but never really within the same week. Certainly not on the same day had we seen him be able to put those performances together. And he was solid. He came up against, and he came up against some big performances. And he didn't particularly, if you look at certainly the tournament averages over the course of the weekend, he's not sort of right up there doing anything amazing, but it was very vintage Peter Wright, wasn't it? We saw a couple of different sets of darts and we just saw him steadily knock people off and win darts matches, which, let's be honest, is something we haven't seen a great deal from Peter for quite some time.
Yeah, look, it was interesting. Round one, he rocked up with a set of Simon Whitlocks that he nicked out of Simon's case because he liked them, as you do, just casual. And to be fair, he played well to beat Nico Springer. Nico Springer played decent, but Wright's average 95. He then plays against Bunting, where he starts with those said darts, changes to the dumpy dart that we'd seen, but the back end was slightly questionable. He went to a long stem with a kite flight, but then he went back to stay with the dumpy barrel and then played with a regular flight and stem combo that we saw him play well with down under, and he just got better and better. And look, the little spell against Michael was vintage Peter. Michael's averaging 104, by the way, playing really well. And Peter goes 12, 13, 11, 14 to win 4 legs on the spin.
He's managed.
That's world-class darts.
Yeah, he's managed to overcome some huge. I mean, we sort of glossed over there, but he beat Stephen Bunting. He beat Stephen Bunting at 6-5 in a deciding leg. Bunting averaged 103 in that game. Like he's first of all on any day, that is not an easy route to the final at all. You look at the games he's had to win, the players he's had to beat to win that. That is a very, very difficult route on any day. When 3 of those people are going to put in monster averages as well, like you wouldn't back him to come through it, but he's just found a way to win those games. He's found a way to win when it didn't look like he would as well. It was really very impressive.
Yeah, and look, he was up against it. Luke played brilliantly in the final, but Peter just, through the want of a famous Dutchman saying, he did the right things at the right times. Luke at 5-2 up was in control. I think he missed a couple of darts at tops. Peter then broke, got us back on throw, and he just picked his moments brilliantly because Luke didn't fall where he was still averaging near 107 come the end. But Peter just, it was almost reminiscent to the World Match Play final. Was it 2 years ago when Michael beat Gezi, where Gezi was doing all the front running and looked good, and Michael just found a way to do the right things when it mattered.
Well, if you take out, so I was looking earlier because I've had a bit of time today and it sat around. So I for once I got to actually sit and look at some interesting things and look at some numbers. And I was looking at like how difficult that route had been for Peter Wright to come through. So if you look at the players that went on a good run, the tournament averages. So the tournament averages, Michael van Gerwen and Luke Littler had tournament averages over 101. And that's over the course of getting right to the end of the tournament. Dobie would think he's the only man higher on 103, but went out a bit earlier. So you can have that as a bit of an anomaly. And Peter's managed to find his way past both of those. So both of the highest performing players over the course of the weekend, statistically, Peter's managed to come through. Like Luke's performance over the weekend was bananas. So Luke Littler's first 9 average over the weekend was 114.7. First 9 average. Absolutely monstrous. Well, Peter's found a way to win. And that is what he hasn't been able to do. Even when we've seen him find big averages. You know, he's lost with 102, 103 averages this year, Peter. And he just hasn't been able to repeatedly and consistently get over the finish line. So that was very, very encouraging.
Yeah, and Carl, again, an excellent stat there. As always.
We love that stat.
Yeah, absolutely superb. Evening, Adam. Hope you are good. But look, this now makes the back end of the season very interesting if we get this continued version of Peter Wright.
I think that's the issue, isn't it? And that's always the issue with Peter Wright is, do we get this again from Peter Wright? Look, he was included in the Premier League this year. I argued for a long, long time that he shouldn't be in it. The event doesn't suit him. But why was he included there? Because he's the only person other than Luke Humphries to win a major last year. He just has this ability of putting it together. And we're seeing him put it together in shorter spells than perhaps we have done in the past couple of years when he's won multiple majors in different calendar years, etc. But I think a big part of that this season will be those darts. He's been throwing those stumpier versions of those first year World Championship winning darts throughout an awful lot of events. We've seen a slight return to form on the Pro Tour with them. We're seeing it on the Euro Tour now. I think the big one will be, will they still be in his hand when we rock up at the likes of the Grand Prix and the Grand Slam?
Yeah. Yeah, look, well, we'll see this weekend. We've got back-to-back Euro Tours. Let's see what he rocks up with.
Yeah, see if he's playing with the same ones.
Yeah. But brilliant. Another final for Luke Littler as well. And we saw, well, we were talking about it on the stream. I don't know if you guys saw it. He looked as if he'd made a slight tweak to his dart. It looked as if he was using a smaller point. They weren't those giant 50 mil ones. It looked like he'd gone back down to the 42 mil, something around that. And that for me, watching him, they were going in the board a lot better and a lot firmer with just that slightly shorter point.
I think with all equipment, there is a balance, and we're seeing a lot of players make these changes to longer points. But I think some of them to the detriment of their dart. Another player that I'm going to see close up this week or next week, Bradley Brooks, World Youth Champion.
Yeah.
Or former World Youth Champion. He's gone to a very, very long point, and he just doesn't have the venom in his throw to make him stick half the time if his timing's slightly off. And look, having these really long points does open the bed up massively. It gives you loads more room to play with. You can dance around and make all these crazy angles that perhaps you couldn't do if you're, say, a Paul Hogan, who I was referencing for last week, who one of his 3 darts is the barrel is touching the board. That's how far the point is going in. But you've got to get a balance right with it. And I think that, especially as Luke grips slightly further back, that balance point is slightly off.
Yeah, but I'd say just a slight change, it looked like, and it looks as if they were going on the board better. One that went very much under the radar that had an incredible weekend off the back of winning the Red Dragon Champion of Champions was Nick Kenny. An incredible run for him to get to the quarterfinals, and all of a sudden he's playing his way into keeping his tour card contention. After taking a break at the back end of last year, he's come back and he's looking like the player that we've seen. We've seen him post big averages playing within the BDO WDF circuit, and again, it just looked as if he's found himself, perhaps.
It does. I think he's got away with murder, averaging 84 to beat Ross Smith.
That was a weird game.
I'm not quite sure how Ross Smith managed to not win that game. But, you know, the person who scores all the right points and hits the double wins the game. So, like, you know, Nick Kenny's won the game. Like, somehow he's won it. It's going to go a long way. You know, I think there was a few. I know we talked about Peter, obviously, because he won. You know, there was a few cases that we saw of you know, people potentially igniting a different back end of the year to what we might have predicted, or certainly what many people might have predicted for them. Nick Kenny could be one of them. But again, probably like Peter, it will be interesting to see what happens next. You know, we saw. He went deep. But I don't think he played brilliantly. He played all right, won the games. Yeah. But I think we're going to have to see, again, a higher level of darts more consistently from Nick Kenny if he's going to keep that tour card. But this weekend could have been exactly what he needed in order to get back to that level.
Yeah, great.
He has got that game. He's capable of producing what he needs to keep hold of that card. It's just whether he can find it at the right time.
Yeah, evening. Bob is in the chat room, one of our new OD Club members. Thank you very much, mate. Says good evening, everyone. There he is. Superb to have you in, buddy. Interesting one from MVG as well this weekend. That obviously I watched him on the Pro Tour, and coming back off surgery, I thought there were spells, and I was interested to see him play this weekend. Although he's lost to Peter Wright, this was a more consistent man going. 96.89, 102.08, and 114.10. That's more consistent from MVG this week.
Well, the only people with a high average, this person with a higher average this weekend, as we said, was Luke Littler. 101 tournament average from Michael van Gerwen. Very consistent, very high level. What we expect to see from him. So encouraging.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see that, because look, we've been critical of him. We've been critical of some of the technical issues, but maybe he's getting his head down. And it was in his on-stage interview with Swiss Phil was interesting, and I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember it all, but it's time for me to kick butt again. Do we think perhaps that little period in hospital, he's had a bit of reflection time, and we're going to see the real Michael again?
I think we could do with seeing him again. Look, whether or not he produces that week in, week out is going to be another matter. We've had this debate about Michael now for the last 2 to 3 years almost. The 2017-2018 Michael has not been seen for a long, long time, arguably 6 years. He's had a spell of a year without ranking titles and TV wins and all of that was unthinkable 5-6 years ago. When we first started this podcast, if we'd sat there and said Michael van Gerwen will have a season where he doesn't win anything, we'd have been laughed out the room. 18 months later, I'm going, lads, this is a serious possibility here. And you're like, oh, no, it happened. And it's just everybody else has caught up now. The fear factor has gone from Michael for an awful lot of people that are playing him now, because they've seen that he is human and he doesn't produce that level, and he's not winning last leg deciders as frequently as he was on the Euro Tour when there was that air of 25 game win streak that he's doing it in, and everybody's looking at going, well, if you get that far, he's just going to do something special. Or if he hits that one big score, you're playing against him going, uh-oh, here it goes again kind of thing. Look, Michael back to his best would be absolutely brilliant to see, but he is never going to dominate the sport like he has before.
100%. No one will ever dominate, but it's like, are we going to get him back to consistent levels, not where we see 104, 104, 88 and things like that, because they've crept in.
I think what he needs to do is minimise the drop-off, doesn't he? He needs to make sure that if he is going to have a drop-off, it is to a smaller level. The range in his averages, Chris Mason talks about this an awful lot whenever he works on the Super Series. Your range of averages for the week. If it's 30 points and someone's banging in 110s, but they're also dropping in 78, that's too wide. Michael's got to narrow that range, make sure that his B game gets a lot closer to his A game once again. And then, who knows, we might see somebody go on an assault and try and take on Luke Humphries for that world number 1 spot. But that's staying with him for an awfully long time for now.
Yeah, it's like we get the 104s, which is fine, but the range needs to be only dropping to a 95 or something like that.
It's the peaks and troughs, and he can. To be fair, if he can tighten up the troughs, if he doesn't fall off as much, then he doesn't really need to find those huge. The peaks don't have to peak as high if he's finding a more consistent and, like you say, narrowing the range. If the peaks and troughs are less extreme, but it's about that. But consistency will come with. It's consistency of throw, isn't it? That's what he needs. He needs to find a consistent throw and setup that's working for him to be consistent. I don't think anybody thinks that we're going to ever see the Michael van Gerwen of old, but we certainly could see a Michael van Gerwen who is, right at the very, very top of the game. And you probably couldn't make that case for the last 18 months that he's not the best darts player in the world, and he's not in the top 2.
No. Also, welcome along to Matt. We've got a new OD VIP member. Thank you very much, mate. Cheers, Matt, for joining. Any questions, get them in. Also, before we go off, Dan had a very good day working on this today. I promise you, it is not far away.
So I've made huge strides of progress today in the development both of the merchandise itself and the route to market. So yes. I promise, folks, we are nearing.
It is almost there. Evening, Joe. Good evening, Gaz VK13, and of course, Anthony is in the chat room. He's kept me company pretty much for the last 4 days on and off. Always a pleasure. So yeah, we promise you is on the way. Gaz, I will star your question and we will come back to that later on in the show, mate. But I've started it so we can talk about it. Not a problem at all. Good evening, Baz, as well. How are we doing, Johnny? So that's the World Series, right? Let's do this in kind of chronological order as it broke.
A proper busy week, isn't it?
Yeah. So, I kind of got wind of this a couple of weeks ago that it was being looked at. Wasn't sure if it would happen, but I was told by a good source that it was being looked at, and then they dropped the news that we have got an increased Masters field, and now the first ranking event of the year will be the Masters. First of all, boys, what was your first initial thoughts when this news dropped?
Not allowed to say that on air.
My first thought was, I can't wait to hear Cobb on the show talking about this. That was my first reaction. I suppose for me, it wasn't one of surprise. It's tough, isn't it? I spend an awful lot of time moaning and ranting about non-ranked events, but I'll probably just invite Gob to share his views with the world, and then I'll maybe pitch it at the end.
I just don't see the fucking point. The event's been a bit of a nonsense anyway. If you're going to keep introducing 2 World Series events before on the calendar, then what the bloody hell is the point of the Masters anyway? Upping it, I get it from ITV's point of view. They want more to be able to push. Look, more darts on TV is good. The fact that the PDC have done the okey cokey on their article with it'll be the top 32 on the order of merit, that was in, then it was out, then it was back in, then it was back out again. Until they clarify that, we can't really go any further on it. But if it is just the top 32 ranked players, then they've lost the fucking plot. Quite simply. The gap between the top 32 and everybody else is already widening. If you look at the rest of the moves that have been made on the calendar, we've already criticised the Euro Tour quite heavily. When those changes were brought in last year, if you look at the number of players that have managed to make an appearance on the Euro Tour this year, that has decreased significantly because these guys have been given protection. Has it made the Euro Tour any better this year? I'd argue not. In some ways, I'd go the other way because players that aren't in form are being kept in because allegedly they're a big name and that puts bums on seats. Has that made a difference to crowd ticket sales? Some of the Thursday and Friday sessions still look empty to me, so no. Is where those should have been making the real effort. Saturdays and Sundays on the Euro Tour have always been pretty well attended. I just have very, very serious and genuine worries about how this PDC board continue to operate if they have a tour of 128 players but are only there to acknowledge 32 of them.
Well, like you said, we don't know the actual criteria yet. If I agree with you, if it's just the top 32 in the world after the World Championships, then I'm with you. I don't like it and it shouldn't be. If it's 24 and 8 qualifiers, I don't mind that. If I'm being honest. Because we have criticised the too much unranked darts. Now, if this is a ranking tournament that is done properly, why I think we see the benefits of it.
The difficulty is that you've got too many other tournaments that run throughout the year who've got fairly well established qualification systems that you can't come too close to, otherwise you run the risk of just becoming a poor man's, it's the poor man's match play. It's difficult to, you have to differentiate it from other tournaments, and I completely understand that. There's a bit of me, that doesn't. There is a little bit in me, and I know that this is a bit ruthless, and a lot of people don't agree because it's not very utilitarian, but. Like, if it's just taking on ranking, top 32 ranked players, then you've got 2 years to get yourself into a Masters from getting a tour card. You've then got however long that you hold that tour card for to keep building 2 years worth of credit to get in there. I don't know. It's very easy to say, it's creating more separation. It would sit much more comfortable with me if the change came alongside some other changes that propped up the rest of the tour. So if we did see a move towards, say, minimum earnings on Pro Tour events, that sort of thing, then I would find it very difficult to have a problem with it. Because I just think, fair enough. It's a tournament for the top 32, great. Because if you're making those moves at the same time, or within a shorter period of time, or within a period of time, to say, well, we are also making these changes in order to support the rest of the tour, then I'd say, well, yeah, I'm all for it. The difficulty is, if these changes happen in isolation, then the only people that benefit are the top 32. And then you can say, well, what are you doing for what? The first question is, well, what are you doing for everybody else? And if the answer is, well, they just have to get better. Well,
it's physically impossible for someone who gets their tour card through Q School or regains it or whatever to qualify.
Well, people said that for you, but yeah, and yes, I agree.
But every other major has a route into it. It's difficult, don't get me wrong, but because things like the match play use the Pro Tour Order of Merit and the UK Open has its qualms, and then you can win a tournament to get into the Grand Slam, and you can get there via the Pro Tour and the Grand Prix. If you don't have that route for the Masters, you are literally close shopping and making anybody that's new tour card holder worse off instantly. The amount they have to breach in 2 years has suddenly gone up massively. Again.
Someone asked when the qualifier could be. So I've just got the January calendar up, which we'll come on to anyway at some point. So for me, there's a possibility that it could be either probably the Monday after the Challenge Tour. Does that work? Because you'll have Milton Keynes set up.
Yeah. Yeah, potentially, yeah, because the setup's already there, isn't it? And the players are there.
That's what I mean. Everything's set up, so you could potentially host.
See, again, it's a little bit of what you like. Like again, I pure fans perspective, I enjoy anything that involves a last minute qualifier because you have the potential for a totally rogue entry. Don't like anyone with a tour card can turn it on for 2 or 3 games in a row, and you have the potential for a completely rogue qualifier getting through. And I'm all for that. Like it's fun. I don't know,
but also it goes back to.
Because what that calendar doesn't show is the fact that there will inevitably be 2 World Series events in that time span as well.
I know the date for one of them already.
Exactly.
I just don't know when Bahrain's going. I know when the Dutch one is. I've seen the date for that. So yeah, the Dutch one is there.
Which would then mean what? World Championship, top ranked player, top ranked player, top ranked player, UK Open. Probably sneak another one in between then and a match play. Plus 17 weeks of the same 6 players being picked up by Sky in the Premier League. Jesus. As if this season wasn't overkill enough. The biggest reason people celebrated Peter Wright winning the Euro Tour at the weekend?
Because it wasn't Luke or Luke?
Because it stopped us seeing Luke Littler versus Michael van Gerwen in another final.
The thing, go back, Bob made a good point. Yeah, at least, Bob, I agree with you. At least the Masters is before the Premier League this year. I didn't like it after the Premier League last year. Completely agree. Is Bahrain and the Netherlands? Bahrain hasn't been confirmed, but I'm expecting it to be. I've seen the date for the Netherlands World Series, so I know that's happening. But going back to your point where you say they're looking after the top 32, and look, I get it. And look, I'm putting both hats on here. Look, I can see both sides of this argument. I'm not saying I agree with it, by the way, but I can see both sides of this argument that if TV companies are coming to you and saying, I want these players in, if I do, or if you give us these players, we will pay you X. What are you going to do? Money makes the world go round. We see it in no matter what it is, whether it's football, darts, cricket, we get the 100 from it.
It does, and then on top of that as well, like you make a very good point. And on top of that, like sport is a meritocracy. Like you get what you get based on how good you are and how well you play. Like we don't see this. We don't. I mean, we do, but we. In other sports, if you don't qualify for the Champions League, nobody's moaning and pointing and putting their hand up and saying, "Well, who's looking after those teams? Like, who's doing?" Like, you get what you get.
They're going to pay everybody less if Real Madrid don't qualify for the Champions League one season, are they?
I don't know. I don't dislike it. I feel like I should. I think that's where I'm a bit struggling because I feel like it should be something I dislike, but I'm not sure I do dislike from a pure. This is the difficulty, and this is the difficulty I think that without if you take off your hat of being a like part of the darts world and yourself, your interest that you have for these players as people, and you try and put a hat on that is purely a fan, and then you try and think of where the TV companies are coming from and where everybody else that wants people to tune in and sponsors and everything else. Does the average fan, if I went and just sat 3 of my mates down who don't watch darts, who said they're going to do this thing, it's ranked, and the top 32 get into it, I think most people will go, oh, great idea, that. Like, on the face of it, to the average fan, I think it's the format's great, isn't it? It's lovely.
The average fan wouldn't care if it was ranked or not. They just want to see the top players. At which point, why have they ranked it? Doesn't need to be. Never needed to be.
To make it
if you're going to expand it and include those players, and we're already concerned about the gap, then why have you ranked it? It doesn't need to be.
But if it's not ranked, what is it?
Yeah, to also make the players care. Right, for the last 4 or 5 years, right, we've seen Gezi pull out of it because he can't be asked for it this year.
Gezi's pulled out of half the events on the calendar because he can't.
That doesn't narrow it down.
Yeah, I haven't finished yet.
That's an incredibly poor example, but carry on.
But then we go back to when it was just the Masters, players would turn up after the World Championships, they'd been on holiday, and they'd all be playing with new equipment, not really asked because it was unranked. They'd fuck around with new points, new darts, new flights, new stems, and not really care about it. Where if it's ranked, they have to care because it affects them.
But the argument is that if a player is going to make a change, how else are they going to do it? I thought the Masters was perfect for that.
No, see, I disagree.
Not everybody booked around or whatever. Some players did just use it as a chance to try out new equipment. They'd sign deals in the October, play through the World Championships with their former equipment, and then get ready to go for the following season and have a tinker and see what they can do. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You can't do that on a pro tour. It means too much. You look at the likes of Nathan Aspinall not being in the players once again as it stands. You don't have time to make these changes and have a go anywhere else. If it doesn't work immediately, you're fucked.
But are you then just classify are you then just categorizing it as like a pre-season friendly?
Yeah.
For more players, yeah.
But I don't like that.
Let's be honest, if the World Series wasn't in those 2 gaps, we'd be absolutely fine with it. But the addition of 2 World Series in January, we're like, actually, no, fuck that.
Well, yeah.
Because now there's 3 non-ranking. There would have been 3 non-ranking events in that gap.
If you go back,
those 2 World Series don't need to be there. That's just greed.
If
they're in 2 nations, you don't even fucking need it.
I've been all the time I've been interviewing with Chris Mason. I've been on the bandwagon, as is he, of making it a ranked event. So that was before they put the World Series events in. I'm perfectly comfortable with it being ranked, but I would like the qualifier for it. Is my personal thing on the Masters, because I think it gives it credibility.
I have no issue with it being ranked at all. I think the less non-ranked darts, the better.
Look, don't get me wrong. We are still waiting for clarification, and fingers crossed, I am going to do a sit down with Matt in Holland. So if we haven't, we may get some answers then. I'm not sure. Why does qualifiers make it pointless?
No, I think you're wrong there. You have every single tour card holder has to have the opportunity to play in every single ranked event.
Yeah, and that I agree with. I think because it's ranked, everyone has to have the opportunity to qualify for it. Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
The problem is that the Pro Tour players don't actually get their darts out until the 10th of February. So you're dragging them back for a one-off, potentially having not played since the last Pro Tour, which would be what? Last weekend of October this year?
Yeah, but...
To then playing a one-off qualifier for your Pro Tour to start 3 weeks later. Unless you get a shot at the Masters.
But, right, and I can tell you the line now from that. I've done a few of these. It will be, if they don't want to play, they don't have to play. We are giving them the opportunity to play. That'll be the line.
Yeah, we'll have the same conversation about the Pro Tours in a minute, but we all know the reason they've added 4 more.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. But that'll be the thing. It will say there's an opportunity to play. No, Anthony. What we're saying, because of Q School, you will have between 20 and 24 players that have just won a card, some for the first time, that then won't have the opportunity to have qualified.
Q School wildcard. How about that?
Don't dislike.
let's take one spot and just randomly draw a Q School qualifier and stick them in. Imagine who you could get. Imagine the carnage.
Yeah. But yeah, there's some great questions in it. Other than this, Jack, I've started your one as well about the Paralympics. We'll touch on that in later on, but I've started so we don't forget. People asking, so I think if there is going to be a qualifier, just looking at the calendar, after that challenge tour looks like the best slot. Or it looks like the only slot. Well, unless you go after.
It would be the Sunday. It would be the Sunday night of Challenge Tour 5.
Yeah,
Wouldn't be Monday. Yeah. Wouldn't be Monday. It costs you an extra day to hire the venue. But Sunday, you've already got markers there. You've already got most of the board set up. You just take a few down in the afternoon while you're turning over. There's only one Challenge Tour that day. Start early, get them home, and then run a qualifier. Cost more boards. Be done in 2 hours.
But yeah, that's the provisional spot I think the qualifier will go. But do you think the fact the PDC took that out of their article, we are going to get a qualifier, or do you think they are going to go top 32?
There's a what should they do and what will they do answer.
Oh no, I'm asking you, what do you think they will do?
I think they would leave it as top 32.
What are you saying, Dan?
I'm inclined to agree. Yeah, I think that's exactly what we'll get.
What, literally just the top 32 in the world after the World Championships.
Top 32 after the Worlds. I think that's exactly what we'll see. Everyone's got a chance to qualify for the Worlds. Win the Worlds and you're in.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, they've not added an extra day so that they can commercially make the Masters more viable by adding the likes of Graham Usher.
No, but that goes back to
that's not their target.
But that's
harder on Graham. He's just the first player that I thought of that's close to losing his card, or in that situation that might go back to Q School or might sneak back in or whatever.
But that goes back to my point about selling sponsorship, selling TV rights. That let's be brutally honest, sponsors don't want nobodies, and I don't mean that horribly. That's just the
PDC need to cut the size of their Pro Tour. They need to cut it in half. They cannot sustain 128. And if you're looking at player number 128 and going, you do nothing for our business, why the fuck have they got him on this tour card?
Because they're selling the dream.
Cut it in half. Yeah, but to who? It's a nonsense. They're selling the dream to people that have supported it and tried it. That it's not financially viable anymore.
As I said to you,
put more people on the Challenge Tour, put more money into the Challenge Tour, and you might just about stave off the likes of the ADC, the WDF, and the Super Series.
I disagree.
Yeah,
because we had this conversation when we were chatting on the phone. Was it last week? That for argument's sake, you look. I'm just going to use some. Let me get darts ranking up. Evening, Shawnee Mac, by the way. Hope you are good. Right, so we go down, and let's just say, for argument's sake, Ronnie Hybrex, Christian Perez, Steve Lennon, Radek Zadansky, give back, Rob Grundy, give back their cards because they want to go and play their darts elsewhere, that you know that there are up-and-coming youngsters on the Dev Tour and at the top of the Challenge Tour that will still want to play PDC darts regardless because they think it's where they want to be. And spoiler alert, the interview might not do numbers now, but we've got an interview going out with Robert Owen this week, and he's in that bracket where he might keep his card, he might not. He was earning very good money away from the PDC Pro Tour, from the Super Series. And my exact question to him was, Robert, you're in that kind of ranking area. Have you ever thought that financially the PDC isn't the place for you? And he was honest and he said, look, probably. He said, look, can I earn more money elsewhere? Yes, maybe. But I want to play on the Pro Tour. The Pro Tour is the place to be and get better.
There must be as well a difference, and you two are probably closer to it than I, but there must be a difference. Like when we talk about earning money, we talk exclusively, often, about how much money, prize money is available to win. So you can what we see
15 million this year was.
But we see what people can win and what they earn. You know, we know what tour card holders are earning in prize money in the PDC, and we know what the prize money is for people outside of that. And we know we can see what they're going and winning in prize money. But what we don't sometimes factor in, and what's easy to forget, is the difference in how commercially viable any dart player is with a PDC card playing in PDC majors on TV. They must surely.
How often do they play on TV?
Well, how often they can convince their sponsors they will play it on TV. I think and what you must be in a stronger negotiating position with potential sponsors holding a PDC Tour card than not. You must be.
Because you can sell the dream.
Of course you can, and that's where I think because
it will come off, but you can sell it.
Yeah, it's very easy.
Shawnee Mack is in the chat room again. One, he's only a part-time dart player, as he calls himself, because he's got a very good job elsewhere. But for someone that tries to sell shirt sponsorship, you can sell that dream.
Well, that's the thing. So we look at prize money. You know, we look at what someone's won, and we say, well, they've earned this outside of the people not having a tour card, and this is what this person's earned with a tour card. But that is not the ceiling to which your earnings have to finish. You know, there are multiple different income streams, and we've seen various different dart players make money in various different ways. Whether that be, you know, channels like this, people talking on YouTube, whether that be just wandering around with a shirt sponsorship or various other brand agreements that they might have. And you've got to expect that you're in a far stronger negotiating position for all of those. And whether I suppose, you know, the deal that you are able to potentially get with a management company and everything else, you must be in a stronger negotiating position if you are holding a PDC Tour card.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, Amos said, yeah, Graham Usher said the same. I said to him, will you go back to Q School or will you ADC Motor Super Series? He went, I'm going back. That dream is burning desire gets the better of players. That's why the 128 will always be there, because it's that dream. And yet, yes, look, they can earn money elsewhere if you haven't got a card. But being and holding that PDC Tour card in the back of players' brains means an awful lot. More than money to some of them, because it's that dream. I can get to Alexandra Palace. I can get to the Winter Gardens.
Respectfully, you can get to one of them without being a tour card holder and earn a damn sight more money along the way.
Yeah, but it's hard. You've got less opportunities to get there. Shawnee's come back. So he thinks more attractive as a management company to a tour card, shirt sponsorship. That's what I mean. It's easier to sell that dream if you've got that card.
Maybe. It depends who you are, though. I did Champions Night at Super Series. There were 12 players that played in Champions Week last week. 10 of them had shirt sponsors. Multiple shirt sponsors. To the point where some of them have had to cover some up because they've got too many shirt sponsors.
I agree, but to what financial increment are those worth with a tour card and without a tour card?
Well, the thing is, where are you guaranteed to see those shirt sponsors? Nowhere.
You're not, but
UK Open stream, and maybe look, and even then, there's no guarantee you get on one a Pro Tour stream.
There are some players that I know of that command around 15 grand per a year per patch, with no guarantee of being on TV.
That's the top level, though. Let's be honest.
It is, but what I'm saying is that some of these players, when you look at them,
if we're comparing a Rob Owen or Graham Usher to somebody without a tour card right now, I'm suggesting that the sponsors on their shirts will be very, very similar, if not more appealing to those who are playing in the Super Series, which is guaranteed streaming time, playing ADC events, playing WDF events, and having a crack on the Challenge Tour, where they might jump into something else as well. I'd say right now that's more valuable than world number 86, who played in the UK Open on board 7 and lost second round, and then has played on Pro Tour stream 4 times but lost first round 3 of them. Because that's a big possibility.
Oh yeah, 100%. But what I'm saying is I'm just thinking like and listening and interviewing the players how they think. That tour card means so much to them. So that's why they will always go back. You will always fill the 128. If there's a couple of players that give their tour cards back, it will get filled by the hungry Dev Tour players that want to have a go. That is what I'm saying. That dream will always be the selling point, and it will always hook players in.
I think some need a reality check.
I agree with you. I'm not saying it's the right thing, by the way, but I'm just saying how the players think. Having spoken to and interviewed them recently, players that are probably going to lose their card and could earn a lot of money elsewhere, they're like, no, I'm going back. Like right now, be honest, do you think Robert Owen and Graham Usher should go back to Q School, or do you think they should play WDF, ADC, and Modus?
Second one.
But they've already said they're going back. Their minds are made up.
I don't agree with either of them. They both had a lot of success before they went there. They haven't had a lot of success on the Pro Tour. They've shown glimpses, but not enough to sustain a career out of it. And I think they'll both do better off elsewhere. They're the sort of players that will thrive in ADC environments, that will go and compete there. They're the players that have won multiple weeks on the Super Series stage. Graham Usher's approaching an age where he could go and do some damage in the World Seniors as well, which has another TV event, a big prize fund for a World Championship.
I know. I'm not.
I think he's absolutely mad going back, unless I'm going back to play Challenge Tour because I've seen how many opportunities are elsewhere.
No, he wants his card back.
Not everybody can go and be Scott Williams.
They want their cards. Is what I'm saying. This is how dart players think. They don't think like rational human beings at times.
They're not doing the stereotype anyhow, are they?
But that's the Masters. Now we have an extra Euro Tour that has gone up 14. Now I know they were looking at 15, but we've ended up at 14. I'm sure that will be expanded again. I don't quite buy into all the hysteria about having another one in Germany either. Why would you not? Because
there are European nations that you expect the development from World Series to Euro Tours. Don't get me wrong. Look, again, the money's brilliant in Germany. Whoop-de-fucking-do. But we're going back to venues that we've been to. Right? If you're expanding, I want an expansion. I want to go somewhere new. You've got nations with tour card holders that this is the time to capitalise, yet you're holding World Series events in Bahrain and the Netherlands when they could be spread around elsewhere. You go and attack of France and Italy or somewhere. Poland, for the last couple of years on the World Series, has been amazing. Make it a Euro Tour. Get an atmosphere in there that is ranked and proper.
Yeah, but I'm sure it was a 3-year deal they signed for the World Series there. So this coming one will be the last one for the World Series. You can't just get out of contract, Scott.
If you sign another Germany event next year after giving them back. No, you're not going to take it off them again, are you?
No, you go to 15.
There's not enough time.
They were looking at 15 for this year, but couldn't get what they wanted. They were actively looking to have 15 this year. So if they were looking this year, They're not going to just go, I'm not looking for 2026.
No, they'll keep looking.
They're looking for 15, 16, 17.
Too much. Especially with a protection for the top players. I'd have absolutely no qualms with expanding the Euro Tour if it was under the system previous.
I would have quite liked to see another country.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would have liked to have seen another country, but I don't, from a business point of view, I understand why they've gone back to Germany. Because it's
you've got to assume that they've gone. Right? You've got to assume that they've gone and tested the water and done some serious looking into whether or not they think they could sell out a decent sized venue in Italy or sell out a decent sized venue in France. And clearly, the answer to that at the moment is no. Because let's be honest, they'd have done it. Like if the PDC thought that they could sell out, or even like 2/3 sell out somewhere in Italy or France, I believe they'd have done it. So they must have gone and looked at that and took the decision that it's not commercially viable. In which case, do you do it as a loss leader? Well, probably not, because why? Like, it's not the sort of thing you would run as a loss leader. There's other things that you can do as a loss leader, like a World Series event or something like that, that are probably more suitable and won't cost you as much money. So, yeah, I just think it is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, the venue in Göttingen is really nice as well, and it's sold out. The European Championship sold out there, so they know they're going to go there. They'll have 6 sessions, or certainly 5 will sell out Friday afternoon, maybe not, but the others will. So, look, I get it. But no, look, would I have liked to have seen an Italy or a France? Yeah, of course I would. But it's also not the end of the world that we get another one in Germany.
It's also like the game is still developing. And it is easy for us to say, well, it'd be great to have Italy, France, but the game is still developing there, and we haven't seen that consistent level of tour card holders coming through. They aren't going to see home players. It's not a World Series event where you're going to get, a day where everyone gets to go and see the home players play. We're not. If you're not going to see a home player in Italy, you may see one in France, but you're unlikely to see one in France, and therefore it's a difficult case to make, isn't it?
And it was interesting with the World Cup this year. And I've been to Göttingen. We did it for the European Championships. So we were speaking to the Italian team, and Massimo Dante was there as well. He was almost the translator at times, because the other two's English was okay, but it wasn't amazing. And when the interview stopped, we were chatting to him, and we were like, so what's the big regions in Italy and stuff like that? And he was saying, look, steel tip darts still isn't very big in Italy. It's getting bigger, but we've got one region of the country where we've got about 250 players, and that's the hub for one country. Is that big enough to go and do a Euro Tour? Probably not. Where was it?
Can you remember?
It was the north. It was somewhere. It was the north of the country.
All right.
I can't remember exactly, but that was like the hub of steel tip.
The north is more densely populated, and there's more airports up there and stuff, isn't there? So at least you're going in the right place.
So again, when you've only got a core of that, is that big enough to plonk a Euro Tour in there yet? Probably not. Have you got a local promoter there that can do the promotional stuff for you? And everything like that. It's
a TV deal.
Yeah, look, that's in there as well. So when you've got massive X's next to all these criterias, you're not going to take the risk. Is the thing.
It's just very inspiring, isn't it? It's going to be the same players in the same venues. Like, well done, Sam.
No, we just saw Nick Kenny in a quarter-final at the weekend.
Yeah.
But we're seeing less like Nick Kenny this season. because there's less opportunities to go and get yourself in there.
There is,
We would have seen 4 or 5 Nick Kennys by now on a Euro Tour season.
But then I don't know. We've seen players that have almost become specialists at qualifying. You know, people like a Richie Edhouse, who's had an unbelievable season, built primarily on the back of being able to qualify for Euro Tour events. It's a different. I grant you, it's a very different setup, but it does still. You know, we were talking earlier about the Masters, weren't we? And saying, well, you've got to allow people the opportunity, and it does allow the opportunity for people to get there and get there consistently.
It's interesting. The calendar as well. We've almost got the full calendar, not quite there. Hasn't got the World Series on, but we've got all the Pro Tours. 4 more Pro Tours this year. Some single date Pro Tours as well, which is a surprise.
It's just a needs must, that, I think, isn't it? It's just like almost square pegs in round holes, and wherever we can fit them in.
Initial thoughts on the overall calendar and the added dates in.
The match play has the match play moved?
It's a week later.
Yeah, that's fucking perfect. It's unbelievable. Because the last few years, it's been breaking up for school weekend for the schools has been the second half of the match play, and the match play week has been like the last week of the school term. So having the full match play in the school holidays is tremendous.
We've also got Women's Series Pro Tours in the Netherlands this year as well. Added to the calendar. Gob's gone awfully quiet. Oh,
I don't know what you want from me.
We're saying, obviously, the 4 extra Pro Tours, more opportunities to play darts.
Higher cost. Look, more opportunities to play darts, yes. Am I taking this as look, the bottom players can go and earn more? Not really.
It's a bit cheaper for the Dutch players to play, though, isn't it?
And granted, there are a lot of them. Fine.
It gives the Dutch players an event off having to travel to Barnsley or Leicester or somewhere else, doesn't it?
What it hasn't done, and what none of this has done, is address the fact that the players at the bottom end can't afford to make a living out of being a dart player. And they've gone, all right, we'll put more events, which, all right, if you back yourself and you go and win them, you start making an earning. Yeah, but that still comes with a cost to travel, accommodation, food and drink for the weekend. All right, some people have managers paying that way, but like, they're not addressing the concerns of the tour.
It's a separate conversation to the calendar, though, isn't it? The earnings across the board.
Yeah, the earnings is a different conversation to the calendar, 100%.
No, because it's the PDC's logic and argument will go, well, we've given them more opportunities to go and win money. It's the same conversation, because this is how they get around the argument of we need a minimum earning. We need players that can be professional dart players on a professional tour. And by adding 4 more events, we've given them an extra chance to go and win more money, is what the argument will be. It is the same argument. There's an extra Euro Tour qualifier. There's an extra 4 Pro Tours. If you win 3 games in them, you're $4,000 better off. But they're big ifs. And they'll remain big ifs. But even if you've got players who've got more excuse now to not turn up to half the shit.
But that's the thing, that if, and the line will be, as you say, if you don't want to play, don't play. You look at the other.
That should never be the approach. You are a professional body with 128 players that you keep naming as professionals. They're not professionals if they're not making a living from this, which they're not. any other employer in the world would be absolutely slated for having a working environment or conditions where you don't make enough to live.
Look, I mean, I
We
think
just go, oh, it's your choice to turn up or not. It's a shit excuse.
But also, this comes from having the monopoly, because there isn't anyone to challenge them, and won't be.
And so, this is the difference. So the only difficulty I have with that, the only difficulty I have with the whole structure, is I've got no problem with it if you allow people ranked beneath a certain number to go and do whatever the hell they want away from the tour. But the difficulty I have with it is the restriction on people being able to play in other events if they don't have, like, you have to allow someone the opportunity to pay their mortgage. And if they aren't able to do that, like if you're self-employed and you do any other job, then you can just go and do whatever you do self-employed 7 days a week. And if you need to earn some more money, you can go and do it on a weekend, and you can do what you need to do. Whereas with a tour card and that, restriction on going and doing other things. Now, I completely understand the PDC's need, and it's come up with snooker, and it's come up with other things, to protect their assets, their tour, the commercial viability of their tour. Like, you don't want, for example, people to be able to see Peter Wright, Luke Littler on anything other than something with a PDC logo in the corner of it, because they are your massive commercial assets. It is difficult to make the case that someone who's ranked 100th in the world and has shit all chance of keeping their tour card, it's difficult to say that they're a commercial asset or a viable commercial asset to the organisation.
Well, the organisation themselves won't say that they are, so it's not us slagging them off. It is them doing nothing to acknowledge that or saying, actually, no, we're not interested in that. If they were, they'd be doing more for them.
Going back to your point, Dan, what you said about it come up in snooker, we all know the snooker contract was changed following a hotly disputed conversation, shall we say. We all heard the conversation that was leaked online. If that's the case, isn't that down to now the dart players to challenge the same ruling?
The difficulty,
the snooker players did it, and
but the difficulty
was changed.
Yes, is the short answer is yes. The slightly longer answer is that the players that were involved, or the player that was involved in that situation with snooker, has the ultimate stroke in terms of getting things done. Whereas what we're talking about here is dart players who aren't quite ranked in the top 100. So the idea of them being able to go and try and tackle organizations in a similar manner. Now, what the difficulty was that the snooker thing didn't actually get challenged legally. So nothing went through a court. So there is no legal precedent. There's no precedent for it anywhere. The rules were just changed and people were accommodated.
Because I think they were advised to, because if it had got that far, they would have lost.
Yeah, but what that also would have done is it would have meant that anyone else that comes to challenge it doesn't actually need to challenge it. They just need to point at a legal precedent and say this applies here as well. And then I don't need to go to court because someone else went to court and did it for me, and this is now the precedent, and you just need to apply it to me. But because that hasn't happened, there isn't that precedent that anyone can turn up. So then it then needs somebody to like go and push it on. I feel like
there is nobody to do that though, because one, the top players that are earning are being well looked after, and two, there's no one else out there at the minute that is offering big sums of money to play darts. The biggest threat to 95% of sports at the moment in terms of breakaways is the Saudis.
Yeah, and they're not targeting players
major
outside the
investment
top
in terms
100,
of shares recently. Simon Jordan said it publicly not too long ago that somebody invested quite largely into Matchroom and took a massive share out of it. Now, let's be honest. There's only one place we're pointing those fingers at. If Simon Jordan knows who they are with his connections in boxing, and we know who that they're working with and where there are World Series events and who Eddie Hearn's in bed with, the only people that were there that could possibly create a breakaway or enough money there to take the top players away that would then need to challenge the PDC are currently being accommodated by them anyway.
To a point, yes, but if you're a if you're a lower ranked player, then test the water. If
it can be anywhere, can it? It doesn't need to be it can be anywhere at all.
Yeah.
What's the rule? What does the rule say? Streamed events?
Basically televised or streamed events. I don't know the exact wording.
You can test it. You can test it anywhere, then, can you? You can test it by playing anything.
So, Chris, basically, was it Macau? However you pronounce it, that event, snooker event in China, happened, and they wanted the top players to go and play in it, but it would have been televised. But again, the snooker players have got a similar contract to the PDC players that you can't play in anything else that is streamed or televised.
Now, the difference between snooker and darts is they can apply for a sanction to play without that restriction.
Well, darts players can as well.
There's still restrictions within that it cannot clash with the same weekend as a professional event or be within a certain radius of a PDC hosted event at the same time, sort of thing.
So the snooker players, obviously, Barry had a conversation with Jason Francis that was leaked on social media, X, Y, and Z, and then it came out that then the snooker contracts were changed, I think 2 or 3 weeks before the World Championships, where players could then play in other stuff outside World Snooker that was streamed or televised. I think one of the bravos was that you couldn't play in something televised if there was a World Snooker event on at the same time, and
which makes sense. Like all those things are like they're perfectly fine and reasonable, aren't they?
The snooker contract was changed, so if you're a dart player and you're feeling hard done by, then there's an avenue to go down. At the end of the day, the two companies are under the Matchroom umbrella, so the contracts are going to be similar, you would suggest.
Probably written by the same solicitor, you would imagine.
Yeah, so there are options there. But also, we go on about costing and things like that, and it costs a load to go and play in Germany and Holland, which it does, I agree. But also, the tour is probably getting close to 50-50. That 50% of the tour is outside the UK.
I'm not even questioning the fact you've got to travel to the Netherlands or Germany. Traveling within the UK itself is expensive enough.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is,
for a block of 3 Pro Tours, you're still looking at 500-600 quid. Unless you live in Milton Keynes and travel to the venue each day. Because now that calendar's been released, the hotels in this country work on a pricing structure that moves up and down depending on demand.
Oh yeah, look, we get that.
Well, now they've got that, they whack at least 30 quid a night on each of the hotels.
Are they not, according to the... is there not some preferential rates? I'm sure I read that on the website this week. Is there not some preferential rates agreed that there's some work's being done by Mr. Durrant and Co?
There's 2 issues with preferential rates, Dan. One, they normally apply to a hotel that is more expensive than a budget one. And 2, somebody somewhere is getting a backhander for it. So there's an extra £5 on that's there anyway.
Wow. Well, couldn't possibly comment.
Yeah, but Paul, what I'm saying is if you're at the lower end and you think you can go and play in the Super Series, but you can't because of that contract, then test the water. But go and say, look, I want to go and play in this. Your contract isn't legal. I want to go and play in the ADC Tour and stuff like that.
It does surprise me that no one's ever pushed that
Yeah.
rule. It genuinely surprises me that no one's ever pushed it, and more so now, where we say it all the time. I think I might put it on a T-shirt. Actually, I might make a T-shirt that says "There's never been a better time to not have a tour card." We say it so often, but when there has never been a better time to not have a tour card, this is where I'm surprised that nobody has challenged that ruling.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But if they do, of course, they will all of a sudden never be a better time to have a tour card. That'll change overnight. If all of a sudden you are able to play in other stuff, there will never have been a better time ever to have a tour card. It will change very quickly.
Well, some organisations will then be the ones to do the banning. They will, to protect interests of, how do I put it, gammons, to put it polite. Miserable old men that have been doing it for 35 years that still play from 7'6" or play the no bust rule in the local league or some ridiculous rule. But ultimately, I think what this comes down to, and I alluded to this on Twitter, and it got me in a little bit of trouble with someone who I haven't had a conversation with yet, but I intend to. We've had other conversations this weekend, is that the tour players need somebody sticking up for them that has influence at PDC level, either on the board or from their union, and it just doesn't feel like that exists.
But there isn't a union. The way the PDPA was set up, it's not a union.
Well, then they need to unionise and have some sort of say, don't they?
Mace did a really good bit in one of the interviews that I did with him when he spoke about it. The PDPA was, the way it was set up, it's not a union.
It needs to become one.
That's never going to happen.
But the difficulty in terms of so they can represent and they can provide services, which they do. They provide services to their members. Like, in order to become a union, then what they have to have is they have to have something that empowers them against the people to which they want to make a point. So they have to have something, the doctors' union, the train drivers' union, they hold some power over the people to which they are negotiating, because they can just not go to fucking work. They put everybody on strike. Now, that will never happen. That'll never. So in order for them, it's impossible for them to unionize because they've got no leverage over. You have to be able to wield some level of power, not over your members, but over the people to which you are negotiating. They're always going to struggle at the negotiating table because you do that, or what will we do if you don't do that?
Everyone calls out the World Series. Let's be honest, half the players only go because they get appearance fees on top of their fees or prize money, and some of them are.
But what you're looking for then is you are looking for potentially the 8 players that absolutely do not need union representation to do something that would make sure everybody else could have it, which is never going to happen, isn't it?
Yeah. This is what I mean. It will never become a union because they've got no bargaining chips. They've got nothing to threaten with. That's the issue, and that was why and how Barry set the PDP up in the first place, because he knew it didn't have any power.
And they still can, they are able to still provide valuable services and do things that are muchly needed and required, but they aren't able to operate as a union because it just doesn't work in the environment in which that we're discussing. Yeah.
But could you imagine Peter Mandy going around the table? Right, if you don't give us this, our players are going on strike. They'll say, "Go on then, put them on strike." They'll still fill it.
Just not earning any money anyway. Striking won't make a difference.
So that's what I mean. There's absolutely no way the PDPA have got any resistance whatsoever in terms of, look, and this is what we go back to, when the promotional company is effectively also the governing body, they hold all the aces. They make the rules and they put the events on. The way it's been set up for them is incredible over the years since Barry took it over in whatever it was.
Because to a lot of people, that is what the sport is. The sport is PDC.
Yeah.
That's what people view the sport as being.
But overall, I actually quite like the calendar, if I'm being honest. I think it's a good calendar. Yes, that there is still the World Series events to go in. The World Cup's back in the earlier spot in June, so it doesn't clash with the first weekend of the Euros. Obviously, we'll have New York, Poland to go in, Australia, New Zealand. But overall, I like the calendar.
It's busy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's plenty of opportunities for players to play darts, ultimately. Whether they want to or not is another thing. Whether they can afford to or not is another thing.
And for fans to watch darts.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Evening, Josh. Hope you are good. To be fair, I do agree with Warren's point there that since Rod retired, that it has lost a bit of balance because Rod came from the original split and from that player's point of view. So yeah, since he has retired, yeah, it has lost a little bit.
I didn't like him in front of the camera much, but actually his influence behind the camera seems to have been far more significant than we first thought.
Yeah, I don't disagree. But if you're rating the calendar overall, what are you saying?
6.
8.
7. I'll go in the middle. Just out of interest, God, what would you change to the calendar? I'm just intrigued.
Destroy it. Just bomb it.
What would you keep? Is there anything you'd keep? What would you keep where it is? Are you happy with the World Championships where they are?
Yeah, and the match play.
The match play. You're happy with the match plays? All right. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Players Championships. All right.
I'm very happy with the Grand Prix being in Leicester because it boils everybody's piss. That it's
I was about to say they've not even put TBC this year. It is literally Bosch. It's in fucking Leicester.
Yeah. What else do I like? I don't like the fact that they are incapable of checking when school holidays are, and the last dev talk means the kids are back at school. Genius. As opposed to this year when they did manage to put it in holidays. I still don't quite get the move to midweek Pro Tours, if I'm being honest. It only benefits a small minority of people that are already making, again, a change that we discussed at length last year.
Yeah,
they made that big change and they managed to find time for one more Euro Tour.
There'll be more in 26. Don't worry about that.
Midweek Euro Tours very much benefits people with working from home agreements with their employer who are subscribed to this channel.
And if you haven't, why have you not subscribed?
Correct. Yeah. Put in a flexible working agreement with your employer. Work from home.
We're better than that now. Forget subscribing. Become a member, and you get a fancy little flight next to your name as well.
Yeah, different levels of joining the OD club are now available.
How does one do that, Philip? How does that? If one was to become a member, what would
click the bell icon? Click join below.
There's a little bit that says join, which will be good. And as we said, merch is on the way. Dan had the most productive day today getting it ready. So that is all good as well.
Midweek Pro Tour, Matador, is purely for the bookmakers.
Which is an income stream.
Popping up the additional prize fund because they can now stream extra boards throughout the week and there's less football to compete with on a Tuesday afternoon. So they get more attention.
And let's be fair, we all know it's been tested at the UK Open and in other areas that...
It should have happened last year, but they ballsed up the very first 5 minutes of the UK Open the first year. They put all 8 on there. Otherwise, every board would have been streamed for 18 months already.
Yeah. So, look, they'll I don't think we'll ever have all board streams, but I think we will get a couple more. So interesting. Right, returns to winning ways. Right. What are you laughing at?
Nothing.
Yeah, but look, I know you don't like it, but that income does prop up because there is a lot of money that goes into the Pro Tours that.
Again, yeah, but all I'm hearing is reasons why the PDC are making more and more money, and yet none of it is going to the players at the bottom who need it.
I know, I agree. I agree with you. There should be more there.
They've made all these changes to support the tour, and yet they still can't go, right, here's a minimum earning because we appreciate the times are different to 20 years ago.
But you don't know that's not
a day at best.
You don't know that's not coming, do you? We just know that all we know at the minute is we've got a calendar, so we don't know if anything's going to change in terms of the financial incentives and rewards for players.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. Paul has joined the OD Club. Welcome aboard. I can say it now. It's not on our channel, so I don't give a fuck. It was on our channel back then. It's not now.
What's that? What did I miss?
So I'll fill you in afterwards.
Uh,
Yeah, it's not on our channel anymore. Right, there was an interesting, or it caused a bit of a stir, and he kind of said what I think we were hoping to say. I'm going to play the clip and then we'll discuss.
No, not really. I'm sort of in the mindset now that I'll turn up and play in whatever events I'm in. If I'm not in them, I don't care. I've sort of built a platform, so to speak, for me to just do what I want to do. If I fall outside the top 64 and finish darts tomorrow, I really don't care. I'm just going to start enjoying darts now. Turn up when I want to turn up, not turn up when I have to turn up. So yeah, I think in previous years it's been darts first and family life after. But I think it's going to change now. It's family life first, darts after, and my main priority is back at home.
It's interesting that we know you've been very wise with your money, with your properties and your other businesses. Is that nice knowing that you are now comfortable in life, that you don't have to worry about darts?
Yeah, but then it also eases the pressure, and you haven't got the pressures on you to go and win. And sometimes those pressures are good for you. When I first started, and I was eager, I wanted to win, I wanted to be in everything. And I've sort of done everything I've wanted to do, and I haven't got that urgency anymore. And hopefully I'll come back. But I'll keep trying my best. I'll plod on as long as I can. But yeah, now that Chippy's doing well, you never know. The retirement could be sooner rather than later. To be honest, I'll probably skip it. I'm due a break in the Premier League, and I love travelling. I love playing in it, but as you can see, this year hasn't been good to me, and it sort of gives a knock-on effect. But it might come to January, February next year. I might have a blistering next 5-6 months, and look forward to the Premier League next year. But as it stands, I probably wouldn't play in it. But who knows? 6 months down the line, I might change my mind and think, just give it another crack. But I say every year I'm not going to play in it, and then I end up playing in it. So yeah, I could say no now, but then I probably will.
Couple of bits that he said in there. First of all, that he admitted there is a lack of motivation because he's done everything that he wants to. And look, we've said it for a while. It's interesting that he said it.
There's no eye of the tiger there anymore, is there?
Not as much, no. We get it in spells.
It's I don't feel like it's anything particularly surprising. I think it's what we've all sort of known and talked about it. It's just that he's happier saying it out loud. It's difficult, isn't it? Because every now and again this year he's turned up and played amazing, and he might continue to still do that. And like a lot of these guys, he's got his tour card. He's earned his right to be where he is. And to be, he can do what he wants, can't he? He's clearly spent his money fairly well, but it is I can imagine it being disheartening for Gezi Price fans to not see him like up for it and gritting his teeth and wanting to go and be the best player in the world, which is what we did see from him for quite a while. So it's a bit, it just underwhelms a little bit, doesn't it? It's I think that the Premier League line is a very clever, like, so just for information, I'm thinking of not playing the Premier League next year as well. Now, I might change my mind, of course. In 6 months' time, that might be different. I might have a different view on it. But at the minute, I'm thinking I'm going to give it a miss. So you probably won't see me in the Premier League next year. It's a great line to get in if you're 90% sure you ain't getting picked. But it is what it is, isn't it? I think we know where his head is. I just think it's a bit of a shame. It's like all good players. It's sad to not see them really have their heart on being the best player that they can be.
Well, if Gezi disappears within the next 4 or 5 years, have we maybe underappreciated his career to date so far?
There's an argument both ways. He's been very, very successful at specific events. Look, it's not on the trophy or on the list, but I think you have to take into consideration his World Championship was the one behind closed doors. He's always been a ridiculous talent. The way that he joined the game, he's riling up AD Lewis within 18 months of being a tour card holder, back-to-back years at match play. When he's on it, superb. That tops hitting display that he had, I think it was in the semis and the finals of the Worlds, was ridiculous.
The 2-9 darters in Belfast.
Yeah, like, he's clearly got something, but he is one. And considering he comes from a sporting background, by the way, where there is, again, crowd influence and whatever else going on, the fragility between the ears when something does go wrong up on stage, I think will always be questioned.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't argue with, the list of achievements is ridiculous because if you don't count the Masters yet as a seeded event, he's won. Oh, sorry, it's a ranked event. Then he's either won or made the final of every ranked event there is. So, like, whilst he's had, success, but more success in particular events, like every ranked event that the PDC puts on, he's either won or made the final. Like, he has had and we're not talking about someone who's held a tour card for 20 years either. Like, in a relatively short space of time, he has achieved a huge, huge amount. But it worries me that his achievements will be overshadowed by
ear defenders.
Yeah, and some negative. There are negatives that have happened, whether that be his interactions with crowds, maybe that be some of the things that he's, stuck on his Instagram or said in interviews, or and certainly now this talk often of how it doesn't need to be here, doesn't know if he's going to carry on, doesn't know if he can get up for it, might give some miss. I worry that becomes the story of Gerwen Price rather than a player who's either won or made the final of every ranking event the PDC have on offer. And that is becoming more of a risk unless he goes and wins some more stuff consistently. But again, it is becoming very, very, very hard to do so because there are some very, very good dart players that sit right in everybody's way whenever they want to go and reclaim their former glories.
Well, it's interesting. Off of this as well, this is kind of linked. That are the big players winning too much money and losing interest? Because we look at Michael Smith openly admits it now that he basically had an 18-month hiatus after winning the World Championship because he went and partied and enjoyed it. We've said the same about MVG as he lost some of that motivation. We've said it about Gary in the past. We're saying it about Gezi now. That it's an old boxing saying. Do you want to get up and do your 5 a.m. runs when you're letting silk sheets? Do you still want to put the hard work in on the practice board that you still have to do to be at the top level?
The clearest identifier of that is that we're aware of, through conversations, and we're not going to give you the numbers because they're private, that the players that play on the World Series are guaranteed appearance money as well as prize money for when they're there. And the number of players that have tried to withdraw or skip events or fight and argue over how much it's going to cost for the PDC to get them down under, etc., because they don't particularly want to be there. So it's what's that trade-off for my time for 2 and a bit weeks is ridiculous.
Yeah. Like, let's be fair, look, he is an exceptionally talented player, but we talk about, obviously, Luke and Luke, they've both become millionaires in a short space of time. Like, a very short space of time.
It is very different, but again, it's because it's a sport, and we're dealing with like human beings, humans with flaws and interests and all sorts of other different things, and we're not talking about a sport where the majority of the elite competitors come from, let's say, privately educated. You know, there are sports out there where the majority of their elite competitors come from privately educated or go through the public school system, and they come from money and they've been raised with money, and they Darts isn't that. You know, let's be brutally honest. There aren't a huge amount of players with a tour card who grew up like rich, what you would consider rich, are they? They're just not. It isn't. That's not where it is. It might be at some point in the future, but it isn't at the minute. You know, it isn't cricket. It isn't tennis. And some of these people have got their hands on money for the very first time. And some of them think, well, actually, all I ever wanted to do in life was buy a 3-bed semi-detached house. And now I am unbelievably comfortable. I'm more successful than anybody else that I grew up with. And I want to enjoy that. And I want to enjoy that with my family. And it is incredibly difficult to criticize anybody. Like, I talk to people every day in the sector in which I work who think, Jesus Christ, we do the job, you know, our pensions are all right. And people literally look at their pension and say, like, I'm going to get to 55. I'm going to go that day. I'm going to take my lump sum and I'm going to take my pension. I'm going to fucking enjoy the rest of my life. Yeah. So then you think, well, why should anyone else be different? Why shouldn't anyone else be looking at their life and think, well, I'm incredibly comfortable. I don't need to miss all this time with my family. I don't need to not be there taking my kids to school every day. And I don't need to, it's very difficult to fault somebody for doing that. Very difficult. As someone who has spent like a large point of time in his life, like not being able to take my kids to school every day and someone else having to do it because I'm at work, like it's very difficult to criticize someone who says, you know what, I've got shitloads of cash. I don't need to go to work every day and I can enjoy a brilliant life with my family. It's like, I find it really hard to criticize that.
Yeah, no,
I think it's a bit sad as a darts fan that it happens to players, but I think it's virtually impossible with a common sense head on to criticize it.
Yeah, and that's like, I agree, Josh, that for the fans, they want to see their favourite players. And I remember the outcry when Gary Anderson wasn't playing because of his back and he didn't want to and stuff like that. And the Anderson fan club was up in arms and stuff like that.
We've seen it this year with Adrian Lewis, haven't we? You know, we've seen people like genuinely like unhappy that they are not seeing and getting frustrated and saying, well, why isn't he bloody playing like I'm? And they realistically, they're fans and they just want to see their favourite darts players. And of course they do. But again, these are human people, and it's very difficult if you detach yourself from that and just think like, why would they not just want to enjoy their lives? I couldn't fault anyone. If somebody like Luke Littler got to 21 years old and decided he never wanted to play darts again, it's very hard for me as a sensible person to think I could criticize that, because he might just want to live a bloody lovely life for the rest of his life. And why wouldn't you? If that's what you're into, great. If you want to continually dominate a sport and win titles and be the greatest player of all time, and then equally brilliant, but it's human factors, isn't it? And more so in darts than lots of other stuff, because we're dealing with individual players. These aren't, footballers who are part of a team somebody supports or anything else, in which case the players are very transient. They come and go. Like darts is about individuals. So we talk about them in much more detail.
Yeah, Tom, there is, I spoke to Matt on WhatsApp the other day, and provisionally we got something penciled in for Amsterdam. You touched on the humour element there, and Gaz says that question: can the PDC stop the whistling at events? And that kind of ties in with the Gazzy thing, that when he was getting absolutely pelted, like more than anyone else has ever been in the history of the sport, did they do enough for him?
No. I'll tell you, like, I don't think enough is done without a shadow of a doubt to stop the whistling. Like, when I was at the match play, there was a lad sat along the table from me. He wasn't whistling, or I'd have removed him myself. But he was vaping under the table, right? 3 times the security bloke, like on the other end of the room, spotted him, came over, bollocked him. Like, if he's spotting that, you can spot people whistling. Like, there is a team of people whose job it is they're to look exclusively at the crowd. They're not looking at the darts. They're not looking at the screens. Their job is to look at the crowd. There has to be more done to identify it, and it has to be the only way you can solve it is make it very clear that it is, like, it's zero tolerance. Like, if you are found to be doing it, like, I'll accept any thick idiot like doing something once. If you have been seen to do it and warned, there is not a second warning. You are just removed from the venue. Like, you are, and I just think, just put it on the tickets, put some signs up, but you've got a team of people who are watching it, and they have to be more proactive in dealing with it. It's not difficult. It really isn't.
Yeah, no, it was an interesting one, and Gaz brought it up, and it tied in really, really well with the Gezi point as well. I've started, Josh, so I didn't forget. We haven't touched about this yet, but the PDC and Panini. The only thing I'm disappointed with is it's not a full-blown sticker album.
I'm disappointed that I'm going to have to bloody buy them for Billy, aren't I?
You say for Billy, but let's be fair, you're going to be collecting them as well, aren't you?
You're going to have just as hard a job, because you're going to be the one taking all of his cards away to try and get some signatures on them. That's all right. That's how you're going to be on double duty for it. You're going to be wandering around with Billy's sticker book getting it signed. But like, it's cool, isn't it? Like, again, the more that we see darts permeating through into the mainstream, the better. And how much more mainstream do you get for a sport than Panini sticker? Like, it's as mainstream as it gets, isn't it? So I think it's I think it's absolutely superb, and I will be available with my pile of swaps for everyone to go through. The online darts swap shop for cards.
The other thing that I'm interested to see is what players don't have a card.
Yeah, I, for one, cannot wait to pack Owen Roloff's hero card.
To be fair, it might have changed, but 10 days ago, I knew of a couple of players that weren't doing it because they were unhappy with what they were getting paid.
Right, hang on. For their photo to be used on a card, if the amount was more than 84 pence, then behave. Like, you're not going to work, are you?
Look, I'm just interested to see what players don't have them, and then we can.
PDC have stolen enough of their image rights, Dan. I don't need these ones going as well, surely.
They're not doing a shift, are they? Like, Jesus Christ. Let the kids have your sticker. Fucking hell.
Josh, that might have changed, and they might have been talked into it, but I know there was a few that were quibbling over what they were getting paid for just signing and having an image on a card. which will be interesting. Are those players stupid? Oh yeah, can we have the Legends cards as well to go with them?
100%. It needs to expand. I want a match attack style game that I can actually
if
play.
you look at it on that advert, there are currently a couple of players on that adverts that aren't tour card holders, so they've obviously gone out to others as well.
Fair play.
Well, Phil and Fallon are on the advert, so we know that.
Well, see, we could have, there could be. I'm expecting, I'm expecting women's section. I would have I'm expecting that we see that. I'm not expecting maybe not a dev tour department, but surely cards from the women's tour are inevitable.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. It was Super Series Champions Week, and we had an all-Dutch final, and it was Marvin van Velzen who picked the title up. Gob, you were on the stage. I'm not going to lie, I didn't see any of it because I was streaming the Euro Tour.
Is that our first ever Dutch winner?
It is.
How cool.
It was good. Very good. Enjoyable night. I'll be honest, if after 4 games you told me that was going to be the final, I probably would have laughed you out the room, as both players lost quite handsomely in their opening match.
Yeah, I missed the section. I saw the results sort of early doors and then came back to it later on. I thought I've definitely missed a large chunk of twists and turns.
Yeah. I think Marvin played superbly all week and in the week to qualify as well. The way that he now sets that first start has made him so much more dangerous. He's a player that you could have got away with calling a little bit too Ricky Evans in the past, in that bang, they're out of the hand, gone too quickly, loses that range a little too often. But actually, now that he's put that set in, he looks really, really solid. He looks great. He's done a great job of having the rest of the room exactly where he wants them all week, and he made the most of it.
Yeah, and look, congratulations to him, but a fairy tale for Steve West to get to the semi-final when he wasn't even targeting that. This was just to get back to playing.
Yeah, look, well, Marvin and Steve both came out of the same group, and if I'm being honest, neither of them were favourite to win that group. The way that Derek Coulson had played in week 12 and in qualifying for finals night, and then started in the first 3 legs against Marvin as well, I was like, there's only one guy winning this group. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be for Derek. I thought he played superbly for his appearance this time, though, as did all the players. But yeah, for both of those to get out of there, Steve's played lovely. Steve was probably the most experienced player in that room at that point, not just at the Super Series, but in darts in general. He was a long way off from his best, I thought, and he's still managing to make a semi-final of Champions Week, to be in a position where he could and possibly should have won that game. The 1-5-1 from Jimmy Van Schie at 3-2 down is possibly the greatest checkout I've ever seen.
Is that just because it was from Jimmy?
It was just like, bang. It's in. They were just hanging on. He's stepping back. There's nerves. He's thrown darts at double in the match before, at 8s and 16s, where you can see the dart go in the air, where he's dragged it, and he's got that little bit edgy. But the 1-5-1 was absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah. But how is your man crush on Jimmy?
Look, there's a reason that photo went out, and it's because the social team were too polite to actually clip the bit where I called no score on a 48. So, look, I'll take that one over. Jimmy, you require 48, 16, double 16, no score. Yeah, brilliant. So I'll take that photo over that all day long.
But yeah, it was good. We had the Welsh Open in England at the weekend in Western Super there. I'm not going to lie, I hardly saw any of it. I saw that Bo won both women's events. Paige Pauling won the girls' event. And Andy Davidson beat Matt Edgar in the final of one of the men's ones. Really good final, to be fair. Andy Davidson played incredibly well.
I don't know what that was. Cliff Pryor versus Carl Wilson. I think it might have been Wilson.
Yeah, I didn't see it all because it was obviously the Euro Tour and stuff like that.
On the stream. I watched the men's final at 1-1. and they were like 10 points down on the boys' averages who had just played a best of 7. So I sort of gave up with that one. Not the Edgar one, the other one. So
yeah, Andy Davidson played really well. That qualifies him for the Masters.
Yeah, I mean, his tournament average for the Welsh Open was over 90, which in the field that he was playing in, when I totted up a few others, Matt Edgar made a final tournament average 83.5. So Andy Davidson was the best player of the bunch. He consistently played well. Couple of big scores as well in there. So he played. It looks like a very well deserved victory.
And also, currently, Matt Edgar is seeded for Lakeside.
Yeah, got a bit of defending to do between now and then. So he's going to go to the Masters, maybe target one in Italy. He's not going to Chelsea next weekend, as the fees just to get on site are a bit of a fucking joke.
Well, he WhatsApped me this morning, a bit funny enough. So this is the quote for Matt. Bearing in mind, he's commentating at the Super Series on Saturday night, so he's only about 45 minutes from Selsey. So he was thinking, I'll hop over and play on the Saturday. Matt's tweet: took a look at Selsey next weekend to get more time on the board, as I can only play on the Sunday. Well, to access the venue, you'd need to buy a weekend pass, £30. My son also needed to buy a pass to come and watch. So that's 60 quid to get into the venue. £26 entry fee for the darts. That's £86 to get in the room and play. For clarity, that's pretty much the payout for the last 16 minus 4 quid. Shock emoji. Not for me. I'll give that one a miss. Thank you very much. Thumbs down. World ranked events with the man going like this.
I mean,
that's a lot of money just to get on site. Before you've thrown the dart.
I mean, it is for the players. I get, if it is what it is for everybody else that needs to go there. But who is and who isn't playing? Are the organisers? Are they having to pay it as well? Are the whoever's staffing it? Are they having to pay to go and do a day's work? I don't. Weird.
Well, usually, again, going back when it was there, because I went down and interviewed Duzzer a couple of times at Selsey when he was in that circuit, that you used to get your on-site bands as part of your accommodation package. So if you're not staying on site, that's why they stung you.
Yeah, but it's pointless.
To stop people staying at hotels off-site and then travelling in and out. But there isn't anything else in Selsey. It is literally Europe's biggest caravan park.
I've never been to Selsey.
The park itself's nice.
Is it all right, is it?
Yeah, it's all right. It's nice.
You have to get a bus to go to your caravan, mate, because you can't walk it. It'll take
something that big that there's a bus that literally just drives around the whole.
Wow.
The whole park.
Yeah, I understand the logic. I understand why. But I mean, surely a player registered for, I don't know. Yeah, maybe they just want to force people to stay there, but
yeah. Everyone, we'll open up question time then. So get your questions in if we missed anything. Have we missed anything else in a week of darts while people get their questions in?
I don't think so.
I've got this one because this is Rogue. And where the frickin' hell did this come from? Don't worry, Bob. I'm just bringing that one up because Malachi asked for it earlier, but you've done the same. That is one of the roguest signings that came from absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it? Strange. I mean, yeah, good luck to him.
He's been a bit of a journeyman in terms of manufacturers, hasn't he? But actually, look, his form of late has been all right. And whether that's been since he swapped to Unicorn equipment and nobody's noticed it because it was a Pro Tour thing.
Yeah.
Good for it. A good mentor is good for sport.
Yeah.
Correct.
Chris, I haven't yet. I'm still trying to get myself one. Also, yeah, the walk-on girls are back. Daniela and Charlotte will be now appearing at the World Seniors, boys. Got a lot of press and publicity.
It's more opportunity for people to earn a living. And if you don't agree with people being able to earn a living, you're a maniac.
Yeah, Rob, on that same point, I agree. It looks like Mentor's Darts had a Swiss point in them as well at the weekend.
Brilliant.
You know, you because it's got that little ridge at the top, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was like,
Class.
Yes, Paul, get yourself to York, mate. And Leonard Gates won another ranking event. It's interesting because, again, that helps Matthew Edgar because I'm guessing that Leonard Gates will pick Ali Paddy over Lakeside.
Gates and Plaisir. That's why he's 15th, because actually ranked 17th.
Yeah. Because Gates has pretty much already said that he's choosing Alexandra Palace. Cool, Matador. Yeah, I was saying we just noticed it looked like a Swiss point. Connor, you ask, how are we managing the World Seniors as the Grand Slam and it colliding? Well, funny you should say that.
It's a big question, isn't it?
It's a good question, but we're one step ahead. Dan, would you like to tell them?
Well, the next two seniors events are taking place, and this is, don't fall off your chairs, folks, because these are darts events, but they're taking place in the northeast of England. So with one event in York and one event in Sunderland, me in Teesside, situated equidistant between York and Sunderland, will be at both events.
So Dan's going to come and shadow me at York, and then he will be having the reins for the seniors event in Sunderland. So don't worry, here at OD, we will be bringing you both the Grand Slam and the seniors. Don't worry about that one. Ben Robb may also qualify from New Zealand as well. So there may be another spot in the seeds.
And that's providing that he doesn't go and move up those seeding positions.
Yeah. It's come up on my phone. You two have just lost. I'm going to have a look now.
Don't think we can put it on screen because it might be bullying, but I've just been sent that.
That's incredible.
Get me booked in.
I didn't think they did that at Tourmaline. I still think I had to go to Turkey. Oh, that's incredible.
Next.
Paul, get yourself to Sunderland as well. Connor, I want to go to Australia as well. Fingers crossed that will be happening. Premier League spot to a raffle. Tenner a goal or 3 for 25.
Where's Josh Pearson when you need him?
Dan gets pulled out to play at Newcastle.
Yeah, absolutely. As I told you, I've already said I'm thinking of giving the Premier League a miss next year.
But only thinking.
I mean, I might change my mind in 6 months.
I'm not sure exactly what events Matt's going to plan to play in, but he's got his schedule all worked out. Another Euro Tour this weekend. We're off to Belgium this weekend for the Euro Tour. As the race for the European Championship hots up as well, so it's an interesting. I know
we do know now as well that Peter Wright is actually going to mount a defence to it after he went 8 events. 8 events didn't make a quarter final, did he? So he's but he is now mounting a defence of that title.
Yeah, we got the draw and the running order for the World Series of Darts finals. I know they've got this thing where they've expanded the field that 8 players are going to have to play twice on the Saturday.
Lucky them.
Yes, Mark, absolutely have one, because both Gezi Price and Luke Humphreys have chosen to not use it, but look up Cold as Ice by MOP You may want the radio edit because it does get a bit rowdy, but that'll suit perfect.
Yeah, Chris, we spoke about this on the tour. Chris wants Dylan Slevin fined for beating Stevie B. I can get behind that.
Seems a reasonable reason to find somebody.
Hey, look, they'll find anyone else. So
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, Abby and Dan got engaged on the Euro Tour. Proper darts wedding. Congratulations.
I tell you what, looking at next year's PDC calendar, they're going to have a fucking nightmare finding a date to get married, aren't they?
Oh, no, they'll get married on Ali Pally stage, probably.
I was going to say, unless they do it in Milton Keynes or something like that.
It's going to have to be Barnsley, isn't it? It's going to have to be the Metrodome.
Yes. It could be the Empress Ball.
Honeymoon in the pirate-themed water park.
Yeah. But yeah, the World Series draw, there's a couple of tasty ones, and there's a couple of ones where the seed or the non-seeds have drawn each other. So there's look, I look at the Saturday afternoon, Reece Griffin against Jeff Smith. What an opportunity for either one of them to get through to round 2.
Probably favouring Jeff there, if you're being honest, on Reece's TV debut, but yeah.
Yeah, Nathan Aspinall is in the draw. Obviously, I still think there's a question mark over that, depending on treatment. And he's got a toughie against Wessel Nyman in Holland. But that is the World Series final. Yeah, Rob says honeymoon on the Pro Tour in Germany. No, because it's down, it'd have to be the Euro Tour, wouldn't it?
Of course it would.
It would have to be the Euro Tour. Chris, I think Cena will headline night 1.
Agreed.
And then Roman and The Rock will headline night 2.
Agreed.
Which gobble start to watch like we did this year, eh, Dan?
I think we have a watch party next year.
He's not listening, is he?
He's not having it, is he?
But yeah, plenty going on in the world of darts. Because of the success that it went really well, I will stream the Euro Tour again this weekend. It was really, really good. It was a long day, but it was a good 3 days. Kept company by all you guys, which was good. Yeah, it didn't look great, Big Johnny. I watched some of it. It didn't look particularly good. I'll give you that one.
I did meet a wrestler though.
Who did you meet?
Do you not remember the pictures? I met Big Bill, Big Cat.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Outside Buckingham Palace. Sightseeing with his missus.
Yeah. So yeah, that was all good. But no, it's been a good week of darts, boys, and I'm pretty sure that we'll get a load more announcements soon. Obviously, World Series dates. There's a few more bits to come, no doubt. So never a dull moment. Some of the players are back for the Euro Tour this week. Humphreys, Cross, Michael Smith, all back off holiday. Yeah, Chris, working on the Adrian Lewis interview. Matt, very sore subject. No, Bob didn't. Disaster. We were all in queues and everything.
I mean, you were, I wasn't.
I had windows open everywhere.
It was a bit of a catastrophe all round, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No, Dan has not mentioned the football, actually. Quite surprised.
I think I've been unbelievably restrained. And do you know what? This is what happens when Dan drinks 7-Up for the show. Because if I was maybe not doing this show totally clean and sober, it might have come up quite early, that resounding and convincing, comfortable victory that Eddie Howe's Newcastle gained yesterday.
We couldn't finish our dinner.
Yeah, you got away. We got away with absolute murder. To be fair, we had absolute. But that's 4 games in a row this season. I've watched us for the entire game. We've got absolutely no right whatsoever of getting anything out of. Yet we've managed to do what we're doing. You know, we've either won or drawn everything. Christ knows how, because we've been crap.
Yeah,
my
team were 3 from 3 against relegation threatened side, so it's not too impressive.
Come back when you've played somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, if Jar's in the chat room, we'll nibble in a minute. But everyone, thank you very much as well. So let us know what you think of the new branding we've done for the live lounge. We've just made it stand out and a little bit vibrant. I really like it.
I'm a big fan.
Shiny new.
I like the new music.
Yeah, it's been good. Everyone, this will be available as an audio only in the morning as well. So whatever podcast provider you use, it will be there. We've been on 9 Darts, plenty going on this week, so stay tuned and make sure you're subscribed. Thank you very much to all our new members as well. Check that out. There's a little join button on our YouTube homepage. We will be planning some good bits for all of you guys as well. But I've been Phil Bars, Jack Garwood and Dan Simpson. It's been fabulous spending the last couple of hours with you. We'll see you all next week and we'll speak to you all very, very soon.
Bye.